Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry, 24/7 shopping available. 160920 is the code. Show her some love, like she showed us.
Hello and welcome to Tuesday night edition of Tuesday Night Mania. I'm hosting again tonight, Big B. Ace is on a work issue, so we'll go out without Ace of Mania, as Will likes to call him. But starting off, our producer, our co-host next to us, Chris B. Bacon. How you doing, bud?
Doing good, not too bad. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good. And then kitty corner from me, the leader of the Top Rope Collectibles, Mr. Will. How you doing?
Doing great, man. Really happy to have Brian here with me. Brian is one of our admins from Top Rope Collectibles, so super excited to have him on and get some more, intakes and things. Different points of view is always a good thing. So excited to have him. So,
All right, and Brian, welcome to the show. It's always good to have a new, fresh face. How are you doing tonight? Brian, there. Brian,
I can't hear you guys.
can't hear. Maybe log off and come back on. Sorry for the technical issues, guys.
if you have a mic button at the bottom, try pressing the mic button and turning it back on at the bottom of the screen. But he can't hear me. He can't hear me, so that doesn't work.
Thank you.
I'll text him.
All right.
There you go.
All right, Chris, why don't you put him backstage right now? Yeah, well, you take care of that. So, we got some comments flying in. Kev is saying, "What's up, Will and Brian?" Michael is calling you the tribal chief. Will, I don't know. I mean, might need to get a match between you and Roman to get that title. You know.
No. So over in TRC, they actually call me the tribal chief. It started as a joke during WrestleMania weekend because there was a moment that where Paul Heyman was outside the ring talking to Roman, and he was like, "Yes, my tribal chief. Yes, you can do this, my tribal chief." And so we were sitting there at the WrestleMania party at Hogan's Beach Bar, and I said, "That's it. From now on in TRC, I want to be referred to as a tribal chief."
The tribal chief. All right.
Yeah, and it started as a joke, and I changed my profile to Roman and all that stuff, and it just kind of stuck, So, but it's just one of those things. It started as a joke, and now it just keeps going,
All right. Mm-hmm. Well, the chief is in the house, Thomas Glenn. All right, Brian, welcome to the show. I'm glad you can hear us.
Yeah, thanks.
So, all right. All right, first topic on the agenda. I think it's July 31st. Well, if you could correct me. Ric Flair's final last match, hopefully.
Yeah.
We revealed the match itself. It's going to be Flair and his son-in-law Andrade versus Jarrett and Lethal. So, Will, you're going to be there, I think, right?
Yep.
All right, what are your thoughts?
So I'm super excited about Lethal. I think, especially looking back on the history with Lethal as far as the impersonations and all that stuff, he does a great job. Overall, great guy. I really, if you could ever find it, maybe Crispy, because he's really the smartest technical one of us. But there was a time, probably, I would guess, I don't know, man, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know. But Jay Lethal was at the Mick Foley one-night show in Tampa, and he went up on stage and he did an impersonation of Ric Flair, talking about when he helped Undertaker tombstone Hogan onto the chair, and he did this perfect impersonation of Ric Flair. So if you ever find any of those impersonations, like candid video or whatever of Lethal doing the Flair impersonations, they're all hilarious. So definitely he has a place in it. I really kind of thought there was a good chance it was going to be Jerry Lawler that would face Flair. It's in Nashville, which isn't too far from Memphis, and it's basically like within a couple weeks or a week of the 40th anniversary of the Jerry Lawler-Ric Flair feud that took place back in August of 1982. So I kind of thought it was going to be Flair and Lawler, and then when he said a WWE guy, then I kind of started thinking Jarrett, because Jarrett had just signed with WWE. It's kind of weird. Jarrett's going to referee a WWE match at SummerSlam on Saturday, and then wrestle a match against Flair on Sunday. The only one that I really think has no part in the whole thing is Andrade. Like, there's no build up, there's no nothing. Like, I mean, I get it, it's his son-in-law, but I think if you were going to do all that, wouldn't you have gone out and got like Sting or Hogan to be your tag partner? I mean, it's not like Hogan has to get in there and wrestle a 60-minute match. I mean, he can get in there and throw a couple punches and a couple kicks. And, I think a Hogan Flair versus Lethal Jarrett, or, a Sting Flair versus Lethal Jarrett would have been much better than Andrade. I don't really see the draw with Andrade, but maybe because he's popular in AEW. But that's the only disappointing part for me. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a great match. It's a huge historical moment, no matter what. It's a huge historical thing for wrestling. Getting to watch Ric Flair walk down the aisle, which I've seen Ric Flair wrestle in person before, but I was a kid. I mean, we're talking late '90s when I saw it. But I never watched him in TNA or Impact Wrestle, but I saw him in WCW. And, it's really something special when you've been to a match where Hogan's wrestled or Rock's wrestled or Flair or Savage. I mean, so many of these guys, and I've been to all of them live and seen all those guys wrestle live. As a matter of fact, there's not many that I haven't seen wrestle live, especially the classic guys. You've been to something special. And I think no matter who the opponent was, I literally think it could have been Barry Horowitz, that would have been his opponent. And no disrespect to Barry, but, a jobber or an enhancement talent, it could have been against Ric Flair, and it still would be the historical part. It still would be so memorable because this really probably is it for the last time. I mean, he said this the last time. And if you watch the very first promo that he cut, and I talked about this a lot over in my group chat, if you watch that first promo that he cut about his final match, he's all emotional in it, and he's using some language that you wouldn't expect, and then it ends with that woo, right, and it kind of fades off into the dark, and it's really, really good. So it's a really good promo. If you haven't had the chance to watch it, go back and watch that first promo about the fact that he's going to have a match. They made some good promos. These first two promos that they made for the match now, the first one's like 20 minutes long. It's all about Ric Flair's last match, kind of like a documentary they're making. The second one was more about the press conference, announcing who the opponents were and stuff like that. Everything was really good about that. Absolutely loved all of that stuff. The only thing I would have changed is I wouldn't have had that parking lot fight scene. Like, there was no point of all that. I don't think that was needed for the build-up. But other than that, I'm telling you. And plus, on top of all that, there's a stacked card for that whole event. Somebody made the comment to me the other day, I think it was Thomas Brunette, that this card is so stacked, it's like a WrestleMania card.
Yeah.
And it really is. If you look at a lot of the quality of the talent you have there, you've got a lot of guys on that card that have performed at major, major events and or WrestleManias. So,
Brian, what do you think of Ric Flair's opponent tag match, his last match?
When I watched the video, because again, in our group chat, but I know Ric Flair loves Jay Lethal, has the most respect for him. I thought it was a good pick to have Jay Lethal. I didn't know Jeff Jarrett was going to be thrown in the mix. That was kind of a shocker, especially since he's going to be at SummerSlam the day before. Like, I don't know, but I think Jay Lethal will be a good mix for him. Obviously, having Andrade will do majority of the work, but I like the matchup. I think it's going to be a great show. I think it's going to be a good send off for Flair, and catapult him to whatever he'll do next.
So can I address this comment? So Chief says, I need to ask. I understand the son-in-law, and I understand Jay Lethal, but I don't understand why Jarrett is in the match. So the only thing that I thought about that, the only conclusion I could even draw to that is because it's so built and focused around Crockett Promotions. That they're the big supporter of this whole thing.
Yep.
And it's supposed to be the nostalgic, the old 6:05 Eastern time, kind of like the old TBS, WCW Saturday Night. And I believe, unless I'm wrong, the Crockett's and the Jarrett's didn't like each other because the Jarrett's were Memphis wrestling and the Crockett's were Mid South, I believe is how it went. So I think that's where that feud came from. And if you watch that second promo that I was just talking about with Ric Flair and all that, the second one, when Jarrett's beating up Flair, Jarrett says, "Get out of here, Crockett. My dad hated your ass anyway," or something like that. So I really think that's how they tied in Jeff Jarrett to it. Otherwise, I don't know of any other tie Jeff Jarrett would have had to it. And plus, too, Ric Flair made a smart remark, which, of course, was part of the storyline, but made a smart remark during the press conference of, hey, Jeff, I got you and your daddy ringside tickets for my final match kind of thing. So I think it has to do with the whole Crockett, Jarrett, territory days where they had like feuds where, kind of towards the end of territory days, some of those guys didn't get along very well. And plus you had the NWA board. Remember, they had the board of directors back then with the belts and all that. So that is my take on it. I could be totally wrong. But from the historical part of it, maybe Thomas Brunette, our historian out there, could say something different. But I really believe spot on that's what it is.
Yeah, because I can't remember them having a big feud in WCW or any other time. Even TNA, I don't think they had a big feud. So
no, because Jarrett was a 4 Horseman at one point.
Oh yeah. No. Chris, how about you? What do you think of Flair's last match? I know you're still a young kid there. You're on mute, bud.
Yeah, I'm catching up, but I mean, it's going to be a good match, and I think they picked Jarrett because he's going to be at SummerSlam. They're kind of not in the same location, but in the same state, so that probably had to do something with it too.
Yeah, I was kind of lost, I think, with everybody else finding Jarrett in there. I mean, I know the first one was Steamboat everybody wanted, and he came out and said no right away. And then you would think Sting or Hogan, but I think Hogan said he's not ready to wrestle, but I know he's been training. Sting's, of course, doing his AWA stuff. The only other guy that I think could have possibly done it would have been Valentine, but I don't know how well he's in shape. But
definitely,
so, yeah. So, but looking at the card, Jarrett was an unofficial homer. Yeah. Well, speaking of the card, I got it pulled up here. You got Kerry and Ricky Morton versus Brian Pillman Jr. and Brock Anderson. Ricky Morton will have Robert Gibson in their corner. Arn Anderson will be in the corner of his son. The Wolves versus Motor Machine Guns. Ray Phoenix and Tardis versus Laredo Kid and Bandano. Josh Alexander will put his title on line against Jacob Fatu. Rachel Ellery in a triple threat match. It looks like last woman standing, Jordan Grace, and I can't pronounce the other girl's name. Sorry. Killer Cross with Scarlett versus Henry Smith. Clark Connors versus Ray Martina. The Von Erichs versus the Briscoes is the final match on that. So, like Will said, it's a stacked card. I mean, there's a couple matches I wouldn't mind seeing. So,
well, and also too, if you listen to that one about the Mortons and Ricky and Kerry Morton, and then the Anderson and Brian Pillman Jr. I mean, that right there, those guys are definitely future WWE, future wrestling. Second and third generation superstars. So huge stars in the making, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Just the fact that they're going to be there and they're going to be competing, and anytime you can go into a building and you have Ric Flair, you have Arn Anderson, you have Tully Blanchard, you have Magnum TA, you have all these guys, Lex Luger, old horsemen and stuff like that. There's so much great stuff going on, and then all of a sudden you look at the wrestling card, and you've got half of them on the wrestling card.
Yeah.
Rachel Ellering, the daughter of Paul Ellering, right there. That's another, second or third generation superstar too. So, very, very, very cool stuff. The future with a lot of those guys of wrestling is very, very secure, I believe.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right there, Will, and I'm kind of jealous that you're going to be in attendance for that. So,
I'm excited.
yeah, can't wait to hear about it. So, all right, so moving on to our agenda here. This topic was actually brought up by either Thomas Burnett or the Chief Thomas Glenn last week. Greatest wrestling manage ever. I guess your top, your Mount Rushmore if you want. So, Will, we'll start with you. Top managers.
Mount Rushmore of managers. So obviously, Jim Cornette. You can't not have Jim Cornette. I don't think. Paul Bearer with the Undertaker. I hope I don't steal everybody's. Jimmy Hart for sure, and then of course the greatest of all time, Bobby Brain Heenan. There's nobody out there. I would like to say an honorable mention to Harley Race when he had Vader because he was absolutely incredible. And there's so many out there; it's really hard to pick. But you know, Bobby Heenan, it's hard to say that he's not the greatest of all time. Jimmy Hart, how do you not have him in the conversation? Another honorable mention, Captain Lou Albano for his time. Had more tag champions than anybody. But if I was to say one greatest manager of all time, that's the Rushmore. A couple honorable mentions. Number one greatest manager of all time, hands down, Bobby the Brain Heenan. And I'd also like to give a shout out to that whole family right now. His wife Cindy just passed away. I believe it was yesterday.
Oh.
Absolutely. You talk about a woman and a wife that was truly, truly dedicated to her husband. It got to the point where, and this is a true story because I met and saw Bobby, multiple times, and his wife was always with him. It got to the point where he couldn't speak at all, and he could barely make noises. But out of the noises that he would make, they were so accustomed to each other that she literally could tell you what he was saying out of the noise. I don't know if you know much about Bobby, in his last days, it's his last probably, I would guess, 10 years or so of his life, maybe a little longer. He died in 2017, but he had the entire bottom jaw removed and a lot of stuff. So that he really suffered terribly. But you talk about somebody who never ever missed a beat, was always right there, absolutely incredible woman. And I think he was extremely lucky to have her. And again, she literally could listen to him make noises. And I physically saw this in person and knew what he was saying. So huge shout out there. Even though she wasn't directly involved in the wrestling world, what a tremendous loss for the world in general.
All right, Brian, you're kind of shaking your head when Will was naming off stuff. So what do you got?
Because William took my list. So the greatest is Bobby Heenan.
Yep.
Okay. Mount Rushmore is obviously Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette, Jimmy Hart, and then Paul Bearer. I mean, you look at Kane and Undertaker, what he did for them, what Kane and Undertaker did for him. An honorable mention for me, I guess not most recent, but I mean Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman. Look at who he surrounded himself with. He basically talked for Brock for years. So that's my Mount Rushmore, and that's my honorable mention. But I think everyone's answers will be the same with this. I think, but
they're pretty close. The comments are coming in. So
Yep.
one of the first comments is Heenan, Cornette, Jimmy Hart, and Paul Ellering.
Yeah, Paul Ellering is a good pick.
Yep, and another one's Gary Hart, Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette, and Jimmy Hart.
Yep.
So really close there. Gary Hart, a great one that we didn't bring up. Let's see, Gary Hart, Bobby Heenan, Percival Pringle. Of course, that's Paul Bearer.
Yep.
But before he was Paul Bearer, and then Jim Cornette. So, a lot of great guys. Roger Cooper says Heenan, Cornette, Jimmy Hart, and Paul Jones. That's a name we didn't bring up.
Yeah.
So that's a good one too. J.J. Dillon, of course, managing the Four Horsemen. Donnie Morris comments on that. So,
Chris, how about you?
There's definitely some honorable mentions in there.
Yeah, Chris, how about you?
No, we'll go Heenan, Cornette, Hart, and then maybe throw in a recent one, maybe Heyman. But you could also throw in MVP too.
Yeah, there's so many. Heenan by far is number one. You know, Paul Ellery's always been one of my favorite managers. James H. Dillon with the Four Horsemen. Cornette. I mean, the list could go on. I mean, we haven't even talked about like Slick. We haven't talked about. I mean, Will, you did bring up Captain Lou Albano, Sonny for a while there. What's
Sonny,
that?
yeah.
Who'd you say, Brian?
Sensational Sherry.
Yeah, Sensational Sherry. I mean, Miss Elizabeth. I mean, even though she only really managed Macho Man, but yeah, there's plenty out there that we definitely. There's probably ones that we still have missed. I'm trying to think. I know early days Hogan had a manager too, and I can't think of his name right now.
Freddie Blassie.
Yeah, classic Freddie Blassie. There's another one. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of guys out there, but definitely Heenan's definitely top of everybody's list. So
yeah, it's hard to. How can you ever say that anybody was? But how can you say anybody was better than Bobby? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's why he makes the top of the list.
Genius and the coach. I know Genius managed, but who did the coach manage?
Yeah, I don't know about the coach, but I know the Genius.
Yeah, because Johnny Ballion. I mean, everybody's coming out of the woodwork now. So yeah, there's definitely a list. But yeah, you can't put nobody ahead of Heenan. I mean, just think of the titles that those guys all had, and the guys he managed. So
right.
All right, so why don't we go to the historical moment first? Will, this is Batch at the Beach '97, Hogan Rodman era. So, Will, let's break it down.
I think the biggest thing to talk about there was some great matches on that card, and there was some great feuds going on, but you really got to focus on the main event at the Bash at the Beach '97. You had Dennis Rodman coming in. You got to remember the Chicago Bulls is who Dennis Rodman played for. They were in and out of the World Championships and huge number one basketball team in the world at the time. Great basketball player, regardless of your feelings about the guy. And then all of a sudden he gets into professional wrestling with Hulk Hogan. He comes in and they're building this feud where Rodman has joined Hogan and Rodman's going to wrestle. And at first it was kind of a joke, and even like ESPN and all that stuff, if you remember that time period, they kind of joked about it, like, what is this guy going to do in the ring as a wrestler, But then, you get the feud going with Lex and the Giant and Hogan and Rodman, and it actually turns into a really good pay-per-view. If you go back and watch that pay-per-view, there's some really good matches on it. There's some great matches on the card. But if you watch the main event, Lex Luger and the Giant versus Hogan Rodman is a great match. It is a really good one. The only part of that match that I thought was a little kind of cartoonish was when Rodman's holding Luger and, Hogan winds up to give him the fist, and he comes flying to hit him and he hits Rodman instead, and then Luger racks Hogan, and, that's the finish of the match. But there were so many great matches on that card, but really, if you go back and you watch one, like if you only have time to watch one, it's about a 25-minute match if you include the introductions coming into the ring and, of course, the victory celebrations. And ultimately, at that time, that main event was so big and was so over with fans that they ended up putting the WCW World Heavyweight title off of Hogan on the Lex, even though it was very, very short. It was only like a 5 or 6 day time period, but they ended up taking that belt off of Hogan and putting it on Lex for a week to build up the main event for the next pay-per-view behind it, which was WCW Road Wild '97, where Lex went in as world champion against Hogan in the main event. So, but anytime you bring in a mainstream guy, most of the time they're going to make an appearance, or they're going to be there as a manager or whatever. Rodman actually got in the ring and actually did wrestle and didn't really look he didn't look bad. Go back and watch it. Historical moment, 1997, Bash at the Beach, WCW. Definitely one to check out.
I mean, I think if Rodman would have put up an egg in that match and didn't look good, then you don't get Karl Malone down the road. So, Brian, what did you think of Bash at the Beach '97?
kind of the same sentiments as William, but I think Rodman gained a lot of respect from obviously other wrestlers and fans of wrestling for all the. I mean, he had to put some time in to train to wrestle and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Most people that come in that are like guest wrestlers, they don't do much. But Rodman actually, he wrestled a match. Like, he had to put in the time. I think he gained the respect of the wrestlers, which again put on a good show. There were a few mishaps there, but I enjoyed the match. And it's like you said about Karl Malone. I don't think if Rodman put on a good show or showed that he was passionate about the sport, I don't think Karl Malone would have came along and had that great match with DDP and
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Now, Chris, I know you were probably
Yeah.
only, what, 2 at the time in 97 or something like that? So,
Oh, yeah, somewhere in there.
so, I mean, you'll have to go back and
I'll have
watch
to
it,
go
maybe
back.
give us a review. But
I will, yeah.
I mean, looking at the card, I mean, it starts off with Mortis and Wrath, versus Glacier and Ernest Miller. That match, Then you got Jericho versus Ultimo Dragon for the Cruiserweight title. You got the Steiners defeating the Great Muda and Masahiro Chono. Then you have Juventud, Hector, and Lizmark versus Laparca Psychosis and Valio number 4. You got Chris Benoit and the Taskmaster in a retirement match.
That was a great one.
Yeah. Jeff Jarrett defended his U.S. title against Steve McMichael with Queen Deborah McMichael in his corner. Scott Hall and Randy Savage with Miss Elizabeth in their corner defeated Diamond Dallas Page and Kurt Hennig with Kimberly Page in their corner. Piper versus Ric Flair in a tactical submission match.
Yep.
And then you had the main event, Luger Giant defeated Hogan and Dennis Rodman with Savage in their corner. So,
Yep.
Yeah, definitely a great match. Great card. Definitely have to go back and watch it.
Think about how many Hall of Famers are on that card that you just read off. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. And it was.
And just think of the managers that we missed. Jacqueline was a manager. I mean,
for the times, it was a really big event. I mean, it was so big that they were like sending out cards in the mail. If you had ever bought a pay-per-view ever before, they were sending out these like, I don't know what they were, maybe 8x10 cards in the mail showing you that this big match was coming and that you needed to buy this pay-per-view because it was going to be so big. And it was incredible.
Thomas Burnett chiming in, and he's saying Hennig made his WCW debut at that show. Okay, I thought it might have been earlier, but definitely not. But getting back up here, I saw the. I wanted to. Okay. Oh, okay. No. Okay. So somebody clarified. It wasn't Jonathan Coachman he was talking about, because he said Coach was managing.
I think he's talking about the guy from SummerSlam '91 that was in Perfect's corner.
Okay. I'll have to go check that out, because the only manager I remember him having was Heenan. It was in. Unless it was WCW, I could be wrong, but yeah, the only manager I remember Mr. Perfect having was Heenan. So, all right, so we got wrong page. Our SummerSlam predictions. Let's see if we can. So, Brian, I'll start with you. What do you think for SummerSlam here? What's going on?
Well, let's see. Roman's gonna win, obviously. I think they want to build him up more. I think they want, obviously Lesnar will get his shots in, but Roman will win at the end of the day.
Okay.
I think the Usos will beat the Profits. I think one of them will turn on each other and go back to their singles career, and so I think the Usos will win that one. I think Becky Lynch is going to win the title.
Ooh.
I think she's going to beat Bianca Belair. I think Ronda Rousey's going to win the title against Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan's just a nice little placeholder until then. I think Matt is going to beat Corbin.
Okay.
What else am I missing?
Seth Rollins versus Riddle,
Got to go with Seth Rollins on that one.
and then The Miz and Logan Paul.
Logan Paul's gonna beat him and beat him. I don't think they're gonna hype up, Logan Paul signing the contract and all this stuff for him to lay down to the Miz. I think he's gonna beat the Miz.
And then the U.S. title. U.S. title.
Oh yeah, then the U.S. title. Theory.
Yeah, I think Lashley's gonna win that one too. Because again, I don't know if Theory's gonna cash in. I don't know, but I don't think Theory's gonna win the title. I think Lashley's gonna win. Kind of like Seth Rollins, when he lost to Randy Orton and then obviously had one of the best cash-ins in history. So
you think Theory's gonna cash in then and walk away with those titles, or you don't know?
I don't
know.
I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, I literally see Brock Lesnar losing to Rowan and then just beating the crap out of him, and then maybe Theory comes out. I don't know, but I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, I know Ace of Mania is. I'll tell you right now, he's calling it 3-belt Theory after SummerSlam. So, Chris, I know we talked a little bit about between the ropes. So, you go through your predictions right now.
I mean, most of the card I predict, kind of going the same way, but I'm thinking Theory's going to win the title. Roman's going to win his match with Brock Lesnar. Theory's going to try to cash in but lose. But he'll get his U.S. title in the end. So.
Okay. Any other big predictions? The tag match or?
I think Bayley may come back. Bayley or Charlotte. One of the two.
Okay. Gotcha.
Or both.
All right, well, what do you got?
So I definitely think Roman retains. I don't see Theory cashing in. He may do a false cash in, like rundown, like he's going to cash in and then not. But I just don't see it. I can't imagine them coming 1 month, 4 weeks out of him winning that and cash in. And I really don't see him getting those belts and taking them off Roman. I mean, you've built Roman up to be the biggest and baddest and best everything, and then have Theory, which, is really kind of an unknown name. I know he's getting bigger, but he's still kind of an unknown name, come out there and take those belts off Roman. That wouldn't make any sense to me. I think if Roman was to lose the belts, it would be to Lesnar, not Theory. But I just don't see them putting it on Lesnar. I don't see any point of that. Now, as far as Usos and the Street Profits, I'd say Usos got about a 50-50 chance, really, of losing those belts. If they don't lose them, I think it's because one of the Street Profits is going to go on a singles career. I think Montez Ford is wanting to do some singles stuff, so he may do a heel run and turn and do some things like that. I do not see Liv Morgan losing to Ronda because I think everybody has wanted this big push of Liv so much, and it's only been 4 weeks. I don't see Liv losing to Ronda. There may be some sort of schmoz ending to that where there's no winner declared or whatever. The whole Becky Bianca thing, I think it's possible that Becky could take that belt. I think that's a possibility. Theory and Lashley, unless you're going to have Theory cheat or smack Lashley in the face with a chair or something, I just don't see Lashley getting beat by Theory, but I do see Lashley getting back into that world title picture. And you get him back in that world title picture, you're going to have to get that U.S. title off of him. Again, a lot of great people have held the U.S. title, and there's nothing wrong with that title, and it's a great belt, but it's been kind of put to the bottom of the roster, the bottom of the line, and I don't think you can build that guy up and let him hold that U.S. title. Now, if he was Intercontinental Champion, or if he was WWE Champion or Universal Champion or one or the other, it'd make a little more sense. But having the U.S. title on Lashley does nothing for him. And I really think he's one of those guys that, what does happen the week after SummerSlam when Roman loses or Brock loses or whatever, you got to have somebody to face. And I know that they've got Drew kind of hanging out in the background waiting for that overseas match, but Drew was champion before, and it wasn't that good then. So they need to split up the 2 world titles for sure. You got to split those belts up. It's ridiculous to have them on one person. And I think what should happen is I think Roman should beat Brock, and then he should go out in the middle of the ring and say, you know what? It's obvious nobody can beat me for these 2 titles, so I'm going to keep my Universal title. You guys can have this one back. Y'all can create, some sort of tournament or whatever, but, I'm going to go home and take my Universal Championship or whatever. And they should really make it to where, Roman has this major heel storyline of, you guys couldn't beat me for it anyway, so here you can just have this one back. Or I think they should do something like that. Another big letdown for SummerSlam for me was I really thought they were going to build up Cena coming back for the Summer of Cena again, with the whole Austin Theory thing or anybody at that point, and then nothing because now supposedly they're going to save it for later, and I think that's a huge miss for sure. Again, it's a big stadium. I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it, but Nashville Stadium, Gillette Stadium, I think it is.
Nissan Stadium.
Nissan Stadium, you're right. Yep, thank you. Like I said, I couldn't think of the name of it. But, it's a big stadium. They got to fill up for a lot of tickets. And, the matches as a whole, it's a pretty good card, but it's not what it could be. You could take several of those matches and rearrange the participants in them and have an epic SummerSlam. And unfortunately, they didn't do that. As far as Riddle and Seth Rollins, I mean, personally, I don't care who wins that match, but I think Seth lost all those matches to Cody. And if you continue to have them lose, like now if you have them lose to Riddle, then eventually you're going to lose any and all that steam that you built with Seth, with all the character buildup of his new character. The guy can't beat anybody, so I definitely think Seth pulls that one out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Seth's going to pull that Riddle match out. Well, I'm with you. I can see Becky walking away with the title. I kind of hope Belair keeps it. The women's match, yeah, I don't see Liv losing the title. She might lose the match, but I know Ronda Rousey wants to become a heel, so that might be how she keeps that title there in the disqualification match. Or by disqualification, I say. The tag titles, yeah, I think the Usos are going to win. I do see a turn. I think it's going to be Dawkins is going to turn because I think Montez is going to be the face when he becomes.
So in their comments, they're asking if the Usos win, who are they going to face next? I don't think it's going to be a tag team that you're really expecting. I don't think it's going to be, another Street Profits tag team. I think it may be, a couple guys that get together.
Could it be? Could we see Drew and
Sheamus?
Sheamus, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a possibility. That's what I was going to say. I think a couple guys are going to get together.
Yeah.
And then you'll end up seeing them take the belts off of them, but only as a placeholder just to drop those belts back to a different tag team that the Usos have already beaten. So, it'd be like they would take them off, and then somehow the Viking Raiders would, roll them up.
That's what I thought, yeah.
And take the belts. Something of that nature, I think, would happen. And maybe not even those guys. It may be Gable and Otis or whoever, but... Yeah. But I think it'll be something along those lines is what will happen.
Yeah, because I don't think NXT has any big tag teams that could come up and.
No, but you have Baylor and Priest over there. The Judgment Day. Those guys. Those are.
Yeah, they can do it.
That's a tag team.
Now, didn't we hear? I can't remember. Maybe it was a year ago, but a report of the draft. After SummerSlam?
No, I think Draft's going away. I thought they were going to can the draft.
I heard.
I don't know.
Weren't.
No.
So speaking of Balor and Damian Priest, does Edge make an appearance at SummerSlam? They've been building up through those,
I heard he's.
Does Edge make an appearance somehow in SummerSlam?
Well,
I heard he's coming back next week, maybe.
Yeah, because I think they gotta. You're pushing Judgment Day. You're pushing this Mysterio turn. You gotta have the Mysterios versus Judgment Day at SummerSlam. I think. I mean, and I brought it up at Between the Ropes. Is I think they're gonna book the match, but I think Ray's gonna say, "Hey, I need somebody that is a fighter or has that go get 'em mentality, and I think that's where we're going to see Edge and Mysterio team up, and then I think we're going to get the Dominic turn at SummerSlam if they book that match.
You know, I
I think
think they really dropped the ball with this whole Edge return a couple years ago, where they should have at least given him one more title run.
Yep.
And now, hopefully, finally, with this new thing they got going on. But I will tell you this: Edge was supposed to make an appearance, an autograph signing appearance at SummerSlam weekend. As a matter of fact, one of the appearances I was going to, and he canceled that appearance. So he may or may not be there. I don't know. But he was definitely going to have an autograph appearance, and now he's not. So I don't know, how much you should feed into that, because that could just be, timing didn't work out for the autograph signing. But, ultimately, so far to this point, I would say Edge has done, out of a 1 to 10 job, Edge has done a 10 of a job, and his writing that they've done for him has been about a 2, and they really could have run with him, and the pop that he was getting in arenas was incredible, and you could have definitely had him, especially last year, with that big run where he was facing Roman and everything else. You could have very easily had him go on and win that WWE championship long before it became a unified belt or whatever. And if it's a unified belt, why are we still wearing 2 belts around? Why are we not? It needs to be split up. Edge needs his final run as champion, and they're really dropping the ball by not putting that belt on him. I'll say that, though.
No, you're exactly right. For me, the rest of the card, McAfee and Corbin, McAfee showed me a lot at WrestleMania, so I hope he gets over on Corbin. I think that has an outside chance of being a pretty decent match. Theory and Lashley are kind of back and forth because they're pushing Theory so hard to be the youngest whatever, Money in the Bank U.S. title holder. So I could see him somehow getting the title off of Lashley. And then I'm going to steal one of Ace's matches, ideas. And I think Theory cashes in. They're both going to beat the heck out of each other. They're both going to be laying there. And then I think that's where Theory cashes in. So I think Theory's going to walk away with the titles.
I can't imagine them doing that after this huge run for Roman, and then you're going to have it finally end on a cheap cash-in when there's still some build-ups you could do. Now, I can see, and I'm not disagreeing, it may happen.
No, I get you.
And I may go, wow, I'm really surprised, and that may be the surprise. But I can see Theory possibly cashing in, and both guys are down, both guys are out, and it's like, this match is about to be a count out on both sides because they beat each other damn near death, right? And then Theory cashes in, and then Lesnar gets up and F5s them, and then Roman spears them, and then they go back to beating each other, and somehow Roman rolls Brock up, or Roman spears Lesnar and pins him, or whatever. But I just cannot imagine. There's a meme floating around on Facebook right now, which I think is hilarious, and it shows one of the Usos and Roman sitting at ringside laughing, and it says, when Roman sees Theory coming down the ramp to cash in. And it's so true. And literally the first time I saw it, and my guys will tell you in my admin chat over there, the first time I saw it, I thought it was the funniest thing, because I thought the same exact thing. Like, you built this guy up. Like, you remember SummerSlam last year? I mean, it really wasn't a contest. Like, he beat the hell out of Cena and sent Cena home, apparently for good, because now Cena's back at SummerSlam. So, and everybody you put him up against, there for a little while, it was, Roman can't win a match without the Usos interfering. Well, that kind of stopped. And then Roman started just defeating everybody, and now there's no excuses or anything else. So, but again, I think the best thing you could do if you were going to have Theory cash in is have him come down there, cash in, take a couple selfies, and then, while he's taking the selfie, he looks in the camera and he sees Lesnar behind him about to F5 him. You know what I mean? And I think that gets you a huge SummerSlam pop. And then after that, maybe Roman spears Lesnar and they call it a day. But I don't know. Now Thomas is saying pinfalls don't count in the match, submissions don't count.
It's the last man standing match. So
Yeah,
like
you're
I
right.
said, I mean, Ace put it out there. I mean, think about it. They're both laying there. The ref's about ready to count them. Let's say they get to 8. We're all thinking, oh, it's going to be a double count out.
Right.
You got Theory coming
Yeah.
in, cashes in, and it's still a last man standing match, and nobody answers the 10 count. So,
But the count is 20 on the last man standing.
no,
match.
it's only 10.
I thought it was 20.
I could be wrong. Well, I
10.
mean, yeah,
10.
I think it's a 10. Yeah, but
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, WWE is throwing curveballs at us all over before. So, speaking of curveballs, could we speculate? I guess anything with the Paul Heyman theory little segment on Raw. Ryan, what do you think? Is there anything to that? Maybe if Theory does get the titles, that Paul Heyman, he's now a Paul Heyman guy.
So I mean, I think again, I don't see Theory winning the titles. So I can say it's possible with Heyman. I mean,
Yeah.
it could be one of those things where he makes Theory think he is a Heyman guy, and then Heyman does what he did to Brock Lesnar and screws him over, and
Yeah,
you know.
that's true. Well, how about you? What do you think?
I don't think so at all. I mean, you've got such a good thing. Your money, your merchandise sales is coming from Roman. Your merchandise sales is coming from the Usos. Your merch sales is coming from Heyman. Heyman and Lesnar was a great team, but I don't think there was a whole lot of merch sales going on there because Lesnar only showed up every once in a while, and when Lesnar would show up, Heyman would show up. So neither one of them got a whole lot of TV time, but Roman is there, even though he's on a limited schedule now. He's still there a hell of a lot more than Lesnar ever was, and I think your number one merch sales has got to be coming from those guys. I cannot imagine anybody else on the card that's doing more than those guys are. So I don't think so. Again, it wouldn't make any sense. What would you do? You would have Heyman low blow Roman Reigns to let Theory win it? I mean, it just wouldn't make any sense. I don't see it happening.
Yeah,
I didn't think so either.
I don't know. I think, I mean, Thomas Burnett put it clearly. Theory doesn't need him. He's already hated. I mean, that's one thing. So, but yeah, so that's our SummerSlam predictions. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. Maybe a couple more matches will be added, but who knows? So, Will, you got anything else on? I think that was all our topics that we wanted to cover. So, what do you got there, Will?
So, we talked about some different things, some different ideas we wanted to bring up during the live. So one of the things I wanted to bring up was, some of the best all-time promos that have ever taken place, and if we could kind of, talk about that real quick. I know we got about 7 minutes left. We're about to end it, but, some of the best promos that have ever taken place. One of them that I think of is, going back to, let me see if I remember the dates. Going back to WrestleMania 8, and you had this big build-up where they did this press conference and everything, but right before that whole thing, let's just say they did the press conference. They announced Macho Man and Ric Flair as the main event instead of Hogan and Ric Flair as the main event for WrestleMania 8. Like 2 days or a week before WrestleMania 8, you did this big promo where Hogan sits down with Vince, and it's like on Superstars, and Hogan's talking about if this is my last match, then I want to go out kind of on top, and I want to do this and that. And they ended up putting Hogan with Sid, and there's not really a finish to the match and all that. So, but at the time, you really believed after that promo that Hogan was going to retire from WWF for good. Like you believed he was gone forever and ever and ever, and all that stuff was over. I don't know how many people remember it, but it was like on Superstars or All American or whatever it was in 1992, right before WrestleMania 8. They aired it where Hogan was basically saying goodbye to all of his fans and all that stuff. So it was a really, really good special. And then just some other great promos. I will tell you, one of my all-time favorite promos, and then I'll jump over to you guys. But Halloween Havoc '96. Hulk Hogan wins, beats Macho Man, retains the WCW World Heavyweight title, and then you hear the bagpipes playing, and Roddy Piper comes out and gives this big long speech to Hogan about how he needs to straighten up and how Hogan, came there by the fans and all that stuff. That the fans were there to see him, but he was there because of the fans, not the fans were there because of him, basically. Yep. So, really great promo. Halloween Havoc '96. It's at the very end of the card. It happens right after the main event. Macho and Hogan, great match, but huge promo there. And of course, I won't even cover this one because I'm sure somebody else will. But one of the greatest, of course, was at the Bash of the Beach 1996. With the formation of the NWO. But definitely go out and check out some of those. And this is a topic that we could do, especially coming up on a future episode where we discuss like the 5-time greatest all-time promos. And, those are a couple examples that I gave out there, and there's a million promos out there. So what do you think, Brian?
They said Dusty Rhodes gave some of the best promos. Jake the Snake always had good promos, but I always think of promos that actually catapulted careers, right? So, how can you not like Stone Cold?
Yep.
Look at that promo that he did, and look what it took him to. By him saying "Awesome 316," said I just whipped your butt.
Yeah.
Look what happened, dude. You want to talk about merch sales? I think everybody and their cousin had an Austin 316 shirt.
Yeah. The next day.
So, I still do. It don't fit in, but I still have them. But
some of the other stuff he said too, when he did that promo at King of the Ring '96, he put in so much for so many different generations of fans. Like he threw in there, the part about the Thunderbird, and I don't think most people even knew what the hell Thunderbird was when he was saying it. But he was like, Jake needs to go back and get himself another bottle of Thunderbird and find himself some liquid courage. And I think if you were an older fan at that point, you found that hilarious because, not that it's great to make fun of anybody's addictions, but I think there was a close enough relationship between those two guys, and that's documented. Those two had a pretty good relationship, Steve and Jake did. But, I think the speech he gave covered so many different generations of wrestling fans, and you knew at that moment that this guy was definitely taking off. So great point, great promo. And you got to remember, prior to that, almost all the way up to that, the $1 Million Man had really spoke for him, or he didn't speak at all. Yeah. So that was really big for him. And then the next thing you know, he's out there every week talking, and he's talking about, I'm going to beat up Bret Hart, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And, some of the stuff that came from that. So excellent point. Big B.
Yeah. For me, the Shawn Michaels breaking up the Rockers, I thought was, a great segue into his character. Will, you brought up the NWO, and Brian, I was going to say the Stone Cold one. So, even The Rock had a lot of good promos. I thought one of his better ones was when Y2J showed up when the clock finally hit 0, and I thought that was a really good one. So. Chris, how about you? I know you're, younger than us, so you probably got some more recent ones.
You could probably throw Flair in there when he.
Definitely Flair.
Yeah, I would think that one would be up there.
Yeah. So.
I'll tell you, with Flair promos, Flair's done, 50 million promos, right? But this one, the one that I was talking about at the very beginning of the show tonight, where he's talking about, coming back after all this time and having his last match. If you haven't seen that, go find it on YouTube, Flair's final match promo, and watch it, especially the unedited version. I'm telling you, it may be, in my opinion, and I know there's probably 30 people out there that say, oh, this guy's an idiot. He's talking about Flair's promo here and there was better, whatever. But if you go watch that and watch the ending of that, it was like, holy shit, this is a big deal. Like, it gave you a real big fight feel, like you used to feel when Tyson was going to face Holyfield, or some other really big stuff. it gave you that, oh man, I gotta watch that. You know, if I wasn't gonna be there in person and watch it, I would definitely be watching it on pay-per-view, even if I saw no other promos, no other edits, no other nothing but that one promo that Flair did, just off of that, because it was really incredible.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, James Lethal back in when he was doing all the imitations, when he was cutting Ric Flair promos as Ric Flair, I mean, those are phenomenal too. So,
Yep.
okay, so we got a few more minutes left. Brian,
Yeah.
we all know our top 4 wrestlers.
Oh.
What's your Mount Rushmore
Ooh,
wrestlers?
ooh, ooh, ooh.
And we all said the same thing too.
Hulk Hogan,
Okay.
Scott Hall,
Okay.
Ric Flair.
Okay.
This one's going to be kind of an oddball pick, but I mean, you can ask William. I really love Glenn Jacobs Kane. I got to put.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would honestly say, I mean, I would put definitely Kane up there. The Scott Hall one kind of threw me off because I don't think any one of us picked Scott Hall.
I did.
Will did.
I
Will
did.
did. That's right.
I
Yep.
love
Yeah.
Scott Hall by far is the best heel that I think. I mean,
Ooh.
I love Scott Hall. I mean,
Ooh, that might be a good topic too. That Brian back on the best heels because yeah,
good one.
yeah. So
You should, Big B. You should see our admin chat where we discuss all this stuff. So
yeah.
you would definitely you'd understand. But hey, I want to make sure we get to this comment that we missed. And Thomas Glenn, the chief out there in Las Vegas from Thoughts Count Anywhere, great friend of ours, great supporter of ours. He says best promo: Flair and Harley Race for the NWA belt, Flair for gold in Mid-Atlantic. So he's talking about Starrcade '83, a Flair for the gold, and those promos were incredible. And actually, if you watch the documentary, like I was talking about for Flair's last match, there's bits and pieces of that in there too. And I think that the work that they did back then, and you're talking 39 years ago back then, for that whole thing, the work they did back then is equivalent to some of the work that Flair has done in this most recent promo. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Yes, a Flair for the gold, absolutely incredible, because Flair said it himself. Even though that was his second world title run, that was his run as world champion, because his first run, he didn't really know what he was doing.
Yeah.
But when you get to finally get in there and you go over Harley, because Harley is, even to this day, it's 2022, to this day, Harley is regarded as one of the greatest world champions of all time in professional wrestling ever, and a legitimate tough guy. So if Harley said, you're not going over, he wasn't putting you over, and Harley said that he knew when he was going to face Ric Flair that it was Ric Flair's time, and that his time was really done at that point. And great stuff there. So definitely check that out. But I'm telling you, my final thoughts, because I know we got to wrap up. We're past the time, but my final thoughts: number one, huge thank you to all my supporters, TRC, my admins over there, my team over there, great guys. Huge shout out to Crispy Bacon. Chris, you're awesome, man. Thank you for all you do for us. I don't know if you get enough appreciation. If not, I want you to know I appreciate you. Big B, of course, always great being on here with you. It seems like me and you, Big B, we're like the pillars and the fixtures around here, because these other guys, they always have little things that come up and all that stuff. But I get it. Life happens, and that's totally cool. Ace of Mania, we miss you this week, buddy. Joe, we miss you. We got to get the crew back together. Brian, hell of a good job, man. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate jumping in. Thoughts Count Anywhere, Saturdays at noon. We broadcast it over on TRC. Check it out. You got the Chief, Thomas Glenn. You got Aaron Phillips, great guy. I shared that link last week. I talked about, some of the other stuff that Aaron's involved with the mental health stuff. Great people. So Thomas Brunette, he's another one. Thomas, you ever want to jump on the show, man, you just let us know.
Thomas.
Either Thomas, yeah, but Thomas Brunette, the historian, anytime you want to jump on, let us know. So that's my wrap up for tonight, guys. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you, everybody.
All right, Brian, final thoughts here. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks guys for asking me to be on this. I could talk, wrestling for a long time, but tonight was William and Ben's 2-year anniversary of, their shows on TRC, and I don't think you guys understand how hard those guys work to, bring the items that they bring the entertainment that they bring. So I just want to say congratulations to Ben and William. Thank you for all you do. I'm glad to be part of that team. And again, I'm happy to be here with you guys. If you ever need me to sub in, I'm only a click away. So
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Crispy, go ahead. What's going on with C2C?
Yeah, Sports Minutes tomorrow. A lot of great shows coming, to the network we always have. So, just keep watching.
Yeah, exactly. And again, big shout outs to TRC, Will, Ben for your guys' 2-year anniversary. Big shout out to Thoughts Canada because they throw our name out there quite a bit during their shows, especially when we comment. Brian, thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, next week, Tuesday Mania returns. Hopefully, we got some more great content and topics. Until then, you guys all have a good weekend. So, see you next Tuesday.
See you guys.